You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
I'm Travis Currah with Sheldon Jones. It's take 8 of our week 5 preview. I think I have everything recording, Sheldon Jones, but man, I was just so excited. I fired up the barbecue, the charcoal barbecue. Man, you get the chimney, you get the charcoal lit, you put the burgers on, the sizzle, the grill marks, the melted cheese. Man, I'm just in a great mood today. I'm sorry that I'm keeping you up far past your bedtime to do the podcast, but I was crushing burgers. You were at a barbecue yesterday with your special potato salad. Tell me about this potato salad, Sheldon Jones.
Well, it's my first time making potato salad, and I followed a recipe online. However, I added some bacon bits, I added some cheese, eggs, all the pickles, added pickles in there. It was just it worked well. And
it was your first time?
First time making potato salad, yeah.
So I haven't made it myself. I know that if I do it, I would undercook the potato and people would just have this crunchy crunchiness like throughout the whole thing. But I talked to you beforehand. The mayonnaise, you kept it in a cooler. You did a pretty good job with that potato salad, but it always feels good when you make something and people like it. Man, so good for you, man. Well done. I like the burgers that I make, and my wife told me she did too. So I think we had a pretty good weekend of barbecuing. Now, later in the show, I'll be giving away a John Gott bobblehead, the Ottawa REDBLACKS great, who was chugging a beer during a 2018 touchdown celebration, forever immortalized. You can see my bobblehead right behind me, number 63. On the desk as we record this show. You can check it out on YouTube, and all of those new subscribers that have put us well over 400 subscribers, and all the commenters. I put on a digital wheel here. All I need to do is click the button, and that will be the winner of their own John Gott bobblehead. So we'll do that later in the show, but right now, some CFL news that has happened this week. The Edmonton Elks on bye. And we talked about it last episode. They brought in defensive lineman Shawn Lemon, which I think will be a nice addition to that Elks defense up front. They also bring in linebacker Derrick Moncrief, who spent the last few seasons with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He did have a stint in the NFL as well, but I believe when he first came back to the CFL, he did about half a season with the Elks. Now, last year, hung out to dry a few times in pass coverage. Maybe that wasn't exactly his strength, but that's the position he was put in with the Roughriders. I think he's familiar with Chris Jones. I think this is probably a nice little signing for the rest of the season, and he'll be able to contribute right off the bat, Sheldon.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Like, he didn't lose that much of a step. He was put in the wrong position by the coaches last year. He shouldn't be covering receivers coming out of the waggle. But when you're a team that is desperate for a win, and you can add players of the caliber of Shawn Lemon and Derrick Moncrief to your defense, I can't see that being a bad thing. So hopefully Elks fans this will pay off for them quickly.
Week 5 of the CFL season started with the Saskatchewan Roughriders getting a 30-23 win over the Toronto Argonauts. This is a big win for those Riders, who lose Trevor Harris to the 6-game injured list and have a very energetic victory over the Argos. And I think what makes it a little bit more impressive is probably the adjustments that the Riders and Shea Patterson in his first career start were able to make. When the game started, it looked like it might be a long night for Shea Patterson, but they were able to weather that early storm with a lot of thanks, of course, to that Corey Mace Rough Rider defense.
Oh, yeah. And I think the adjustments that Mark Mueller was able to make on offense, because Toronto was bringing just relentless pressure, which is what you would obviously do against a player making his first start. And just the fact that Shea didn't even turn over the ball. That's, I think, the biggest part of this whole this whole game, this whole win. If you're a quarterback and you're getting in there for your first start and you protect the football like that, and you have the defense score, and you have special teams helping you out, just a recipe for success. And I think it actually surprised a lot of people, because that just shows that the Riders may not be as lucky as they have been with the strength of opponent that they've been playing against.
Yeah, and maybe a part of it is the film that teams now have on Cameron Dukes. He was off to a pretty good start this season, but the last couple games, no touchdown passes, turnover galore, and there were 4 interceptions that ended up getting thrown in this game. You could maybe argue 2 of them weren't exactly Duke's fault. Yeah. The spotlight goes on DeMonte Coxie of the Argos, who had a couple of those kind of go off of his fingertips into defenders' arms for the Roughriders. Yeah. But Dukes has maybe gotten figured out by defenses here, and now it's all going to be how can he adjust to what teams are throwing his way. But I found that the Riders, they're great against the run, obviously. They still don't have the strongest, at least I think, pass rush out there. But a few games ago, it looked like the secondary was in disarray. Not so much anymore. Like, Marcus Sayles gets an interception here. Roland Milligan's all over the field. Suddenly the secondary has looked pretty strong for Saskatchewan.
Yeah, it's definitely one of their strengths, and I think that just proves that they maybe put in Sayles one game too early. He probably just wasn't ready because he had that rough first outing. But since that game, and even he got that huge hit and that concussion the week or 2 weeks prior. Luckily for the Riders, they were on bye week, so he was able to clear concussion protocol because he was a huge part of that win. But that defense is just dominating. And the most important thing, though, every single game this season for the Riders, they have probably played their best football in the fourth quarter. And that is something that has not happened for the Riders for a very long time. And so I think that is huge going forward.
Now, that's big for Shea Patterson, who did not turn the ball over. And I mean, with the backup quarterback getting his first regular season start, I mean, against an Argo defense that still has plenty of talent, that is a pretty darn good showing. Even with a running game that still, like, they were trying to get it going, but 3.5 yards per carry for AJ Ouellette. You would like to see a little bit more going there, but they were working with good field position all game long. And when the defense scores, that definitely helps. And that evens out, because you gave up a special teams touchdown to Janarian Grant, who for some reason has success at Mosaic Stadium. That end zone is familiar to him, but when you're giving up special teams touchdowns and you're able to win the game, those touchdowns can be a killer, and the Riders overcoming that, that's a big help to their coaching staff, I think.
For sure, and you mentioned it, when you give up that early punt return for the touchdown, and then the other touchdown that the Argos scored was pretty much in garbage time with Nick Arbuckle in there. The score flattered Toronto a lot in this. They didn't really do anything offensively, but they did have a few big plays. But again, the Riders' defense, if they're not turning the ball over, they're bending, but they're not breaking. I looked at the stats before tonight's game. They had the fewest points against, and they also had the highest points scored for per game. So, a lot of people are sleeping on the Riders still, and I think it's probably time to stop that. But I'm just a homer,
dude. I get accused of being a Rider hater, and you get accused of being a homer. So I think we've achieved
good balance. Yeah.
We have balance on 2 and out. Now, before we get to Arbuckle, I'll mention that Rider play calling at the end of the game there, which I thought took some pretty good cojones from Mark Mueller and the Rider offense, because there was just under 2 minutes to go. Lots of time. And the Riders were passing the ball, and Mitch Picton made some clutch catches. He had 2 12-yard catches late in the game that was able to close the door for the Argos getting the ball back and coming back, because they were only down by 7 points. But big plays from Patterson, big catches from Picton, and big play calls from the offensive coordinator for the Riders.
Yeah, that last drive, they were down in our zone, like close to where we were sitting, and I was sitting with Alex from Piffles, and we were just like, I think we were both kind of flabbergasted that the cojones that Mark Mueller had throwing the ball, but also just amazed by Picton, because I think he's been pretty quiet lately, but the past couple seasons, Picton has been pretty clutch when it comes to second down targets that he's actually getting. He's not getting a crazy amount of them, but more often than not, when he's throwing the ball, he's coming down with that. So, again, it just shows to the strength that the Riders have in their Canadian receiving corps. But yeah, Mark Mueller's offense has been really impressive to me this year. I think just the fact that he's a first year true offensive coordinator doing his own system, Corey Mace, first year head coach, and we're seeing this sort of success is very, very positive for the Riders and for Rider fans.
Well, you talk about Canadian receivers in Saskatchewan. Sam Emilus was the leading receiver for the Riders. 3 catches, 54 yards. He had a 34-yarder in this one. He had a touchdown. Now, Emilus was making some of those Argo DBs look silly. I think that's a bit uncharacteristic of the Argo defense, the missed tackles that they had, and the Argo defense and the depth is about to be tested here, because Jake Seresna leaves the game here. He has ice on his shoulder. Flo Arimolade is already on the 6th game. Deontay Knight was stolen off the PR by the Ticats. Maybe they were keeping a relationship with Sean Oakman, but he goes to Edmonton here, so that D-line depth getting tested in Toronto. Missed tackles galore, turnovers. That's not been the recipe to success for the Argos over the past couple seasons. But I want to ask you about the quarterbacks there. Ryan Dinwiddie wasn't shy, saying that if Chad Kelly does the work, he is going... Is that a moth?
Yeah. Jesus.
Are you on your porch?
No, I'm in my basement. What the heck?
If you're watching on YouTube, you may have seen a moth fly by Sheldon's head, but that's hilarious.
Hate moths.
Dinwiddie wasn't shy in saying that Chad Kelly's our starter if he does the work and he can get reinstated by the CFL. But barring that, ironically, Game 10 is against the Riders at BMO Field. So we'll see what happens when that gets here. But with the struggles that Dukes has had over the past couple weeks, how important is it for the Argos to kind of stick with Dukes? And I know maybe the Riders took the gas off the the foot off the gas a little bit later in the game, but Arbuckle looked okay. He looked pretty good in the preseason. He's familiar working with Ryan Dinwiddie. I mean, if next week ends up being a struggle for Dukes, which is a possibility since it is at Percival Molson against the undefeated Alouettes, I mean, would they maybe look Arbuckle's way or even Brian Scott's way and make a change? Because, hey, if they lose to Montreal, the Argos are under 500.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that Arbuckle definitely had his most success when he was in Calgary with Dinwiddie. So I think since then he's struggled when he's been given the opportunity to be a starter or to challenge for a starting position. But He's kind of a change of pace from Cameron Dukes. Cameron Dukes more of the, the running kind of quarterback who can gun the ball, but Arbuckle's more of a pocket passer. So maybe they could work out a little bit of a two quarterback system. I don't know, but what they have to do something, because like you said, if they lose to Montreal, that's already the season series, because that would be the second loss. And when you have Hamilton is a dumpster fire, but Ottawa, they're not as bad, I don't think. I think they, like, if they put a couple wins together, they could be challenged. Like, then second place is up for grabs if the Argos drop the second game against Montreal. So, uh, if I was Ryan Dinwiddie, I would probably still roll with Cameron, but he's got to have a very short leash, because Montreal's defense are ball hawkers, and if like you saw what happened tonight when Hamilton went down 14 points, like within 5 minutes into the game, if that happens with when Toronto is in Montreal, it's game over, right? So they can't let that happen. So they have to have a hot start. But I still think Cam Dukes is like I don't know if it's just film. He has played well, but like if Coxie doesn't drop both of those balls, those interceptions don't happen. So it's not all on Cam Dukes, but we'll have to see what happens here.
Well, I don't really want to mention this, but Chad Kelly is on Twitter shooting his mouth off, and man, part of me just feels like I don't know. Like, I would go on there, look, I was hacked. Like, he's tweet. I don't know. There were 4 or 5 tweets. It was like, no, nope, nah, negative. I don't know.
Something about keeping receipts.
Yeah.
He deleted that one, but
do you want that guy? Like, he just doesn't seem like a good teammate. Like, and it feels like they're ready to welcome him back with open arms. I don't know. I don't get that.
Football's a business. It's a winning business, and so if they feel like Chad Kelly still gives them the best chance to win, I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying it's right, but I kind of understand it. But
I feel dirty, but it's true.
Yeah. But like, it's one thing for them to say that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's doing his counseling and stuff like that. But when you go on and you tweet stupid stuff, that's showing people that you're not taking this seriously. If Chad Kelly really cared about himself and his playing career and the Argos, he would have Twitter uninstalled on his phone. He would not be tweeting during games anything that could be remotely considered negative towards how his team is playing with him not there. It's just it's baffling, and you would think by now that they would have told him to do that or had some sort of plan in place for him to not be able to be on Twitter. I don't know, man. Like, I understand why Dinwiddie's going to say that. I understand somewhat, sticking with your teammate. I understand second chances. This isn't a second chance. This is a first mistake in the CFL, but he's done it time and time again in college. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the end of my rope with this Chad Kelly BS, but every week that it gets closer to the end of those 9 games, it's just going to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. And hopefully, if he does play that game against the Riders smoke him and pick him off 5 times, and maybe that can be the end of it, but who knows? I want him to reform. I want him to learn from this. I want him to treat his women coaches and women in general with respect. But I don't think he is capable of it.
Owen is gone out of Winnipeg as the Bombers win 25-16 over the Ottawa REDBLACKS. I'm going to say for the players involved that it's probably good that these teams don't play again for the rest of the season, because things were getting nasty. And a moment in the game that changed the game is a hit that Drew Brown took when he slid, and Kremdy of the Bombers hit him. And look, It's kind of, I don't know if you saw the interviews after the game, but Dustin Crum of the Red Blacks said, "Oh, it's a football play." And this is what Crum he said, "I argue with people all the time. I don't like sliding because I give myself up to the defense, and sometimes things like that happen." He didn't need to throw his forearm into the play. I think Kremdy basically admitted that after the game. That was unnecessary. But things like this happen in football, and then it did look like the Red Blacks took a shot at Strevler in the second half as well. Both of these teams are very physical teams, and you saw it with the way that they played this game. The amount of running plays in this game, like there were a lot of people in the hot tub after this one at Princess Auto Stadium. But I think it's safe to say that Drew Brown getting knocked out in the first half changed the complexion of this game the rest of the way, probably.
It did. First thing, Owen may be gone, but hello, Juan. Second thing, I kind of went off on Twitter on this a little bit. It wasn't from the 2 and Out account this time, thankfully. But I'm kind of getting really upset at penalties being called about the players involved and not what actually happens, because if Zach Collaros took that hit, the player would have been ejected 100%. I guarantee you, if Zach Collaros was playing and he got hit like that, that player's ejected. Do I think that the Winnipeg player should have been ejected? I kind of do. It wasn't as malicious as it could have been with helmet to helmet, but that forearm to a helmet, when you see a player sliding, that's BS, and I don't want to see it in the game. And if you looked at the Calgary game this week, there was a time when the quarterback was sliding and the Calgary guy was going to hit him, but he realized at the last second and he smoked his own player.
He did, yeah.
And I don't want to see, players hurting their own players here, but he recognized that if he hit the quarterback, it was a selfish play. He would have got a penalty, and he's hurting his team. So instead, he inflicted a little bit of pain on his teammate. But so what my point is here is players can let up. A lot of times people say, "Oh, it's too close. Players can't let up. We don't want to lose that intensity. It's a bang bang play." But at the same time, you see instances where players can let up. So I think if you send a message to the hits on all quarterbacks instead of singular quarterbacks who have issues with head trauma previously, that would be a lot better for the game. I think that when the Ottawa player hit Strevler, he should have definitely been ejected from the game, because that was a helmet-to-helmet spear, which... That
was a retaliation. And the way they brought it up, we saw a spearing penalty in an Edmonton game earlier this year. It was a 25-yard penalty. Yeah. They didn't do that here.
No, they said it was a grade 2 spear, and it was only a 15-yard, but I must have missed this because I thought spearing was an automatic ejection. I remember it being an automatic ejection, so maybe they did change it, but you need to... I don't really want to go off on this either, but why do you have Al Bradbury, a Winnipeg resident, as the replay booth in a Bomber football game? I don't care if you think... If I'm a conspiracy theorist because I think there could be a problem there, there's a potential for a problem there. They don't let referees from the province or the city of the Grey Cup teams to ref in the Grey Cup games. So why are you letting a Winnipeg resident who has a history of fans thinking that he doesn't make calls correctly, if CFL, please eliminate yourself from that possibility of a controversy. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, Ottawa's offense just got off to such a slow start here. They did have a field goal on their second drive, but most of their other drives in the first half were 2 and outs, or there was actually a lost fumble in the first half. So Dustin Crum comes in, and he did okay. I thought he did. He did good on the ground. He had 55 yards rushing in this game on 8 carries. So that's a nice average of 6.9. But he did throw an interception, nice. and they were just struggling on second down. Like, once the Bombers got the Red Blacks into second down in this game, then they had them right where they wanted them. And Willie Jefferson just made some critical plays in this one. On the same play, the guy has a sack, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Another critical point in this game when the Bombers didn't turn the ball over at all, but this was just old school football from the Bombers. And I think this is maybe kind of exactly what we expected to see from them in this one. Brady Oliveira had 23 carries, 129 yards. Chris Streveler had 13 carries, 79 yards. He had a touchdown on the ground. Not much success passing for the Bombers. 13 of 21 for 127 yards. The Red Blacks, by the way, had 126 yards passing between their two quarterbacks in this one. So it really was a game from the 1950s where you're just running the ball over and over. But the Red Blacks only had the ball for 24 and a half minutes. Winnipeg controlled the clock. They brought the physicality, but not a very decisive win. Do you know what I mean? Like, the receiving core in Winnipeg, the leading receiver was actually running back Brady Oliveira. 5 catches for 37 yards. They're not going to be able to win this way every week, but it counts. It counts as a victory. The kickers were perfect. Lewis Ward and Sergio Castillo combined 9 for 9. And I saw a Dave Naylor piece saying we are in the golden age of the kicker. Rene Paredes, Sean White, I think they're both perfect for field goals on the year. Sergio has been perfect since week 1 once they got the option to take out the microchip balls. But I don't know, man. Maybe those footballs really lit a fire under these kickers, and those fines maybe wanted them to perform even better. Everybody's doing great so far.
Yeah, and it's exciting. The only bad thing is there has been so many field goals this season because there's been a lot of low-scoring games. So you don't want to see that many field goals, but at the same time, you're happy when the guys are making them, right? We saw Lowther try a very long one that just hit the crossbar.
Yeah.
But he's been pretty much. I think that he's only missed 2 this season, so he's been money as well. Yeah, I love it. It's funny because nowadays, if you miss a field goal or 2 and your average is only 90%, that's bad. But back when we were growing up watching like Dave Ridgway and stuff, it's like if you're hitting 80%, you're doing awesome.
I agree.
But that's interesting.
Now, the Red Blacks played a physical game on offense as well. Rock Armstead was the player of the game, I mean, for sure, who had a 33-yard catch for them. They also had 103 yards on 17 carries, a rushing touchdown. He had over 20 points in fantasy, so he was good for my team on the way to a 120-point week. For me, but there's not much to say about this one. The big one was Drew Brown getting knocked out of the game, and you don't want to see head issues with guys, and these things can heal quite unpredictably. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he'll be able to get back onto the field. The Red Blacks are in Edmonton on Sunday, so Edmonton is going to be licking their chops, a couple new additions to that defense, and the Red Blacks suddenly might have a few questions at quarterback. Hopefully he does okay. As for the Bombers, they're hosting Calgary, which I don't know. That's an interesting one. That could go either way. Last time it went to overtime, it wasn't the prettiest game, but we'll see what happens this time in Winnipeg. Now, speaking of Calgary, they had this game, man. They had the reigning Grey Cup champs reeling, but this is why they are the reigning Grey Cup champs. The Alouettes continue that winning streak by winning 30-26 over the Calgary Stampeders. Now, the game was in doubt. If it weren't for a 15-point fourth quarter for the Alouettes, we're probably having a little bit of a different conversation right now. But at halftime, the Stamps only scored 3 points in the second half. It was 23-12 for the Stamps at halftime, but it was a weird kind of first half. It was really the Tommy Stevens show.
Yep.
You can't stop him on short yardage. And then when he changes it up, he had a 30-yard run and he had a 24-yard completion to Mark and Michelle as well. It was really Tommy Stevens in the first half that had the Alouettes guessing, and it got the Stamps off to a fast start.
Yeah, he's what Strevler was that first year in Winnipeg now. He's seemingly unstoppable. But if Tommy Stevens wasn't there, I don't think it would have been close, because Jake Maier played like Jake Maier of last year, early season Jake. It was, again, we're seeing this Jekyll and Hyde Jake Maier, which some days I look like, an idiot because I say that he's bad and he's good, and then other times I say he's looking like he's good again, and then he makes me like I just don't know what's happening there. But for Calgary fans, thank God you had Tommy Stevens there, but that's not gonna, if Winnipeg's defense plays like they did this week against Calgary next week, then Winnipeg might not be won anymore. We'll have to think of something else for them. But I hopefully for Calgary fans' sake, they can figure that out, and Jake Maier can get back on track, because it wasn't pretty for him.
Yeah, he had 64% completion percentage, 18 of 28, a touchdown and an interception for Jake Maier. And then it might fall a lot more on his shoulders, because Dedrick Mills misses this game for the Stampeders. And then there was a moment late in the game, because running back B.J. Emmons, who, by the way, as the ball carrier, delivered a hit so hard to Marc-Antoine Dequoy, he had to leave the game. We'll get to Montreal's injury issues right away here. So Emmons, who ends up being the backup running back, looks like his hamstring had an issue late in the game. So he had to leave. Well, on a special teams play, Peyton Logan was out. So he had to stay off the field for 2 more plays. And so the Stamps, all of a sudden, their entire running back room, which seemed like a strength of the team, is out, is injured. So if Emmons and Mills are out going forward, that is a tough blow to the Calgary Stampeders. Now, the Stamps had this momentum, but the Alouettes go into the room and they make these adjustments, and they have a very strong defense. But suddenly Calgary wasn't able to move the ball on the ground. So then it's up to Jake Maier, and it just wasn't his night to keep the momentum going. And I thought the Stamps took some they only had 40 yards in penalties. Half of them came on one drive that helped the Alouettes extend and kick an easy field goal. We'll get to the field goal kicker for the Alouettes right away here. And then later on, it was a key moment where the Stamps gained first down yardage. Mark and Michelle takes a holding penalty, 1st and 20.
His second holding penalty.
Yeah. Owls get the ball back, score the game-winning touchdown. Now, that ended up being big because the Alouettes, at the end of the first half, blocked an extra point, returned it to the house. So that's 2 points for the Alouettes. That's a 3-point swing. That kept it a 1-touchdown game late in the first half. That meant that Calgary, they needed a touchdown drive there to keep Montreal at bay. And it didn't happen.
Then Montreal almost...
Oh,
but then Montreal almost gave up 2 points on a interception on a 2-point convert too. So that was wild.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. It was probably the game of the week. The Riders Argos game, and this one had action in it. But the Owls had a lot of adversity here because they lost their long snapper and kicker during warm-up. So Jose Maltos, the global player, has to go into the locker room and throw some pads on. And it's not like he was kicking chip shots for field goals. Like, he actually had to make some kicks here. And then a linebacker gets thrown into the long snapping duty, which is a critical part of a game that nobody talks about. And we might as well talk about it now because a couple days before the game, it gets announced that Shawn Lemon's suspension has been, I guess, reinstated. There's going to be an arbitration hearing scheduled for the beginning of August here. We're going to see, I guess, how long exactly that suspension is going to be. But the Alouettes, a little bit of adversity here, losing some key players leading into this game either way. But the Shawn Lemon news, I don't know which way this one's going to go. I got a sense, just with the strong words that, people say that this is, such the integrity of our game. There should be no, black and white, suspend him for life. I think Lemon might be gone for the rest of the season. We'll see what the arbitrator says, but all for like a $70 bet on a game you're in. Not worth it, man. But I think this is where this is going.
Well, you got to make it black and white going forward, I think. This is the first time that it's happened. So, but the hard part is you have to agree with the PA to now put this into the CBA, because obviously it wasn't in there before, or else we wouldn't be going to arbitration, right? So, I agree that the volume of the sanctity of the game is a little bit out of the realm of what it should be because of the $70 bet, and he didn't bet on them to lose. So I understand that, but it's a slippery slope where that could happen. So I think you just have to be black and white. You can't bet on the game that you play or coach. That's all it is. You want to bet on soccer? Go ahead. You want to bet on the NFL? Go ahead. Just don't bet on your own league. I think that's pretty fair for everyone involved.
But let's keep having 500 betting advertisements every game and on jerseys. I mean, the whole thing's silly to me, but
it is. But like, there's alcohol ads, but you don't expect a player to be drunk playing, right? So like, I don't think
that'd be pretty funny though.
Hey, drunken football league, like Mark Cuban, let's go.
It's all about that fourth quarter for the Alouettes, man. I mean, Walter Fletcher, let's see what he did here. 5 carries for 56 yards, including that game-winning touchdown, a 31-yard rush.
31 points for my fantasy.
Wow, you should have made him the captain, because he also he had 100 yards receiving, 9 catches. I mean, he's no Tyson Philpott, 12 catches for 134 yards. But I mean, this is the first battle of the Philpotts. Tyson gets the victory here, as Jalen only had 2 rushing carries for 11 yards here. But Tyson Philpott, and he's right near the top of the CFL in receiving. Tonight, he ended up getting overtaken by... who overtook him tonight?
Ennis, I assume?
Yes. Justin McInnes. No, sorry, it's Alex Hollins.
Hollins,
who's
okay.
for the BC Lions, who's number one. But it's like only a few yards. So, I mean, what a great start to the season for Tyson Philpott. But it's those receivers for the Alouettes, those screens, they have no problem blocking and making things happen. That's actually what the Stamps did in the first half. And the Alouettes figured that out in the second half and ended up winning this one as their undefeated streak continues as they host the Toronto Argonauts this week. I gotta say, it looks like a party at Percival Molson, man. I know we can whine about the horns and all this thing, and they even talked about it after it. They were getting a little crazy when the team was on offense. They had a wave going and everything like that. Either way, it's looking like Alouette games are the place to be, and it's a party there every single time they're there.
Yeah, speaking of the wave, at the Rider game, there was a wave on offense, and it was being started by football players.
What?
They had a bunch of youth. They had a bunch of like in Regina right now. There's a U, I think it's U18 or U16 Canada tournament, and they had all these kids that were in the lower bowl, like right below us, and they were starting a wave on offense, and I'm like, you guys, you play football, come on. I was rattled, but anyway, sorry.
Why do waves always happen when the home team's on offense?
Because drunk idiots don't know when to not start it, and they start it.
I'm a sucker for the wave. Like once it gets going, like it looks pretty sweet. I know it's very 1980s. I get it, but
I do this when it goes by.
You just go like
I don't
this?
stand up.
Just wave?
Yeah, I just wave. That's it.
I love that. But so close so far for the Calgary Stampeders against the Montreal Alouettes. The last game of the week, the Sunday Nighter, there's not much to say about this one, but I do want to mention, man, I don't know how to talk about this. It's a hard story. Steve Townsend just watched his final Hamilton Tiger Cats game. I've been thinking about this ever since I read it on, I think it was Friday night. He's had a hard life, man. 111 surgeries in his life, and he got accepted for the medical assistance in dying. And him and his mom, their relationship with the Ticats is just incredible, man.
Yep.
From them cooking them Thanksgiving dinners and things like that. And what they did for him on the broadcast in the stadium, with everybody giving him a standing ovation and letting him know that he's loved and letting him know that he's a part of the Ticats family and that he's going to be missed, is, man, that just goes, it's just a damn game, but there's so many other things going on that mean a lot more than, an interception or a turnover. It's the people that get involved in this thing that are very special. And I'll be thinking of Steve and his mom, Barb, because this thing is really touched me, man, over this week. And it just goes to show how much this game means to so many people in Canada. And it's tough that his beloved Ticats did that. We'll talk about that first half here. Honestly, the Lions... What's that? Sorry,
I just like to add, though, that was very touching what they did in stadium, and actually it did seem to boost the Ticats a little bit, because they did, right after, I think they as a team were like, okay, guys, we got to do this for Steve here.
Yeah,
I think that was the message that they probably had there, because they went in and they were able to drive it a little bit after that. But like you said, very touching, and the CFL is amazing for the fans that we have, and for the amount of access that the players and fans have with each other. And so this is just, not not the greatest news for a lot of people, but at the same time, it's what he wants. And
Yep.
like you said, really tough life. And
Yeah,
I'm
man.
just glad he was able to be able to watch these guys one last time.
Now, that first half from the Ticats, it's really tough to talk about. And I'm sure it was pretty tough for them to continue the game after that. But the Lions really just, I don't know what happens with the Ticats here. They're on bye. Changes, like, they got to be on the way, right? Like last week, they get rid of the special teams coordinator. I mean, I guess they were all right on specials this week, but defense was not. And it was no secret what the Lions were doing. Like, I don't know if the Lions just gave the Ticats some looks that they couldn't really handle or weren't familiar with, but the first two drives, there were two receivers, William Stanback and Justin McInnes, and they had no answers. They even tried to interfere with McInnes in the end zone, and he still caught a touchdown pass. Like, I don't understand. Like, at some point, when it happens 3 or 4 times, you don't let it happen 9, 10, 11 times. I don't know what the Ticats were seeing there, and that was a brutal first half of defense from that team.
Oh, yeah. Well, and after the first few series, then they started covering McInnes a little bit more, and then Hollins got all the receptions, right? So it was just that there was nothing that the Tiger Cats defense could do in this, and consequently, there was nothing that Hamilton's offense could do in this because the Lions defense was making it really hard for Bo. I don't remember that many egregious drops from the receivers. I don't think there was that many. So, but I think there was just a lot of good defensive play by the Lions.
Well, you kind of compare, like, BC's receivers are wide open. Like, whether it's Hollins or McInnes or whatever. The Ticat receivers, they had somebody draped over them almost every play. There were some drops, but there were, like, contested, catches. That makes it tougher. Yeah. But those Lions receivers, like, nobody's within 10 yards of these guys. Look, and I know that the Ticats, like, this score, I know they lost by, 16, but one was right as time expired.
You're celebrating, pointing a gun at the other guy? Like, give me a freaking break.
Yeah.
That was a bad look.
Like, what are you doing?
Bad.
And, like, there was a point when it did seem like maybe the Ticats were going to maybe put this within one score in the second half. It seemed like Bo got himself into a rhythm a little bit. But then, the wind just come out of their sails. Like, it felt like the Ticats had to work for every single touchdown they got. But when the Lions did it, it was like 2 or 3 plays in the end zone and just pure dominance. Like, I actually think that the Lions could have scored 60. They
looked like the Bombers of a couple years ago tonight. Like, that's what they looked like, just dominating offense. You could score within a play or two and not letting anything. Well, I guess they took their foot off the gas and they kind of went to a little bit of a prevent defense in the second half, but it was just a dominating. The score flattered Hamilton, like you said. It's just, if you're a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan, I feel for you. And like you said, it's the bye week, and what changes are we going to see? I don't think anything's off the book, but can you really fire a special teams coordinator and then fire a defensive coordinator like this quick into a rebuild or a reload, whatever you're calling it? But something has to happen, whether it's players getting cut, getting new players in there. I don't know, but something has to happen.
Vernon
can't
Adams
just keep losing.
Yeah, that stat line of his, 26 of 36, 383 yards, 4 touchdowns. Alex Hollins, 6 catches on 6 targets for 116 yards. Justin McInnes, 10 catches, 13 targets, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. William Stanback had a 45-yard touchdown reception. He had a touchdown on the ground as well. 14 carries, 82 yards for him. Butler only had 9 carries for 27 yards, but he had 108 yards receiving. A touchdown on 9 catches there as well. Shamar Bridges, 6 catches, 87 yards. So, I mean, if you look at from a pure fantasy standpoint, if you had Bo, it's all right. He 374 yards, 32 of 48, 3 touchdowns. That's an okay day when it comes to fantasy.
There's a lot of fantasy points this week scored.
There was. I saw some people getting close to 200. They might have actually gotten.
Oh, I saw people getting over 200. Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't me, but
I got 144.
That's a pretty good week. That's a pretty good week. Like Bo, like I said, he started getting to a rhythm there in the second half, but it was just too little, too late. I mean, good on them for trying to get back in this game. Bo actually had an interception called back due to a penalty, so I guess kind of got lucky there. But I don't think that the offense now. They got 28. One was in garbage time. I get that. But once the defense is struggling and they're giving up so many points and you just get out there and march with a 2 and out, I guess that's part of your job too. to give the defense more than 3 plays off the field to figure out what's going on. And early in the game, the Ticats offense couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, Hamilton tried their best to get back into it, but when you're 5 minutes into the game and you're down 14-0, that's like you're losing 9 out of 10 of those games. Probably more than that. 9.5. Yeah. So they just shot themselves in the foot, and it's hard to recover from that. Especially it's brutal when you're at home, but again, they're going into the bye, so they have to figure it out. They have to, hopefully for them, they're not actually letting the team, well, I don't want to say letting the team, but hopefully a lot of those players realize that they need to stick around and do some extra work. I know that's kind of what happened with the Riders here with their bye week. A lot of their players stuck around because of the injury to Trevor Harris, so I'm hoping for Hamilton's sake here that they try to get some extra work in on the bye.
They've got some vets on that defense. Jamal Peters, Dwayne Hendricks, Brandon Barlow, Casey Sales, and Stavros Katsantonis. Like, they've got players. But they can...
And on offense, too.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think Jonathan Moxey had a tough game at times. And he's another veteran player in the CFL. I do think that maybe changes are coming for the Ticats, but maybe we'll see.
Maybe we'll see a certain number 21 put the pads back on.
Maybe. I wouldn't be shocked.
He's still in the organization. I'm sure he's still in shape. Maybe that's what the team needs to have that vocal, not even to play all the time, but even if he's just in uniform and being that guy to pump the team up. Maybe that's what they need.
But I mean, good for the BC Lions for going in there and taking care of business. That's what they did. They made it happen. They're not going to feel bad for any other team's struggles or anything like that. And they made the win happen. So the BC Lions end up getting a valuable victory over the Ticats. As the Ticats are... there's 2 winless teams left in the CFL. That's the Elks and the Tiger Cats. The point differential is a lot wider with the Ticats than the Elks. The Elks have given up 17 more points than they've scored, and the Ticats have given up 45 more points than they've scored. They're moving the ball, but they can't stop the other team from moving the ball, and that needs to change if they're going to win some games. As for the Lions, Sheldon, it's the Watermelon Smash in Vancouver next Saturday. The Upper Bowl is going to be open. It's going to be a great atmosphere in Vancouver, and we're going to find out which each team is made of. The Lions and the Riders, that's going to be a showdown on the West Coast. So, let's do this draw.
We're worried.
For the John Gott bobblehead. I'm spinning the wheel right now, and it is going to Jzilla 306. The winner.
James Kashuk.
You know
Let's
him?
go. Yeah, I went to school with him. He's my bud. That's awesome. That's not rigged because I didn't do it.
That is the wheel of fortune here. Jzilla 306. Congrats, man. Winning the John Gott bobblehead. We will get that to you, and you'll have it on your shelf very, very soon. Thanks so much for taking part in that, subscribing on YouTube, leaving the comment. It's really helping grow the channel. You don't know how much it means to me to see the stuff happening on YouTube. So join us for fun there. Subscribe, leave a comment, like it as well. It helps with the algorithm and all that garbage. You can support the show on Patreon as well. And our valuable patrons, I do want to send an appreciation note to you, and by the end of the season we'll try to help you out with a few 2 and Out merch contests as well. So you can support the show on Patreon. You can join us for Pick'em and for Fantasy. I leave the links for that in the YouTube description and the show notes with the podcast as well. I'm Travis Currah. He's Sheldon Jones. That was week 5 of the CFL season.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.